Next up is the High School 13 boundary review. Mr. Lubley.
Good evening once again. I am Dan Lubley, Director of Capital Planning and Construction. With the adoption of Policy 6010, the Board of Education is responsible to determine if conditions exist that prompt consideration of a boundary review and to provide direction on whether to proceed or not to proceed with the boundary review. If a boundary review is to proceed, the proposed scope of the review is to be identified. We are here tonight to request the board provide direction to the superintendent to initiate a boundary review process during calendar year 2022 due to the pending opening of new high school number 13, which is consideration prompt 1 under section 3, standards A of policy 6010. Mr. Rogers and myself are here to assist with any discussion the board members may have.
So far, no hands are raised. No one has any discussion for this. Would we need, I guess I'll ask a question. Would we, if there are some egregious situations that we would also like addressed, like say Thomas Viaduct, I'm not sure where they sit now with their capacity, although that is in the east, so it's not that far of a stretch. Would that need to be included in this or do you take liberty with that when we're doing the boundary adjustments?
No, we have discussed the scope of the project. It is felt that the board identify the scope that they wish that this boundary review to be. As the board would be identifying the scope, if the board then goes outside of that scope identified, that potentially could lead to an appealable item. Gotcha. At the end of the redistricting. So It would be best for the board to think through what is desired and specifically identify the desired scope. Okay.
Dr. Wu.
So you need a motion from the board, right?
Yes, sir. We would like a motion to direct the superintendent with what to do as well as what the scope would be for your direction.
Okay. I think before I make a motion, I just want to repeat what we had last time. I think last time we missed the opportunity to put high school 13 on the map, right? Then we don't need to do this again last year. And we just need to plan a little better than before. Unfortunately, last time I was on the minority side. I didn't put high school 13. We didn't put a high school 13 boundary. And now we come back again. And this motion will definitely change a lot, like disturb a lot of students and the parents' life, especially after the COVID. And I hope we narrowly really focus on high school 13 and then revisit some situation during the last redistricting and just put the focus on students, right? And how do we make this right and try to reduce the negative impact. And I'll try to find the motion, or somebody else want to make a motion, please.
Dr. Liu.
Yeah, so I have a question about the scope. How many categories we can choose? So do we have the comprehensive countywide versus locally versus only concentrate on high school 13? How many categories of options do we have?
Please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rogers, but it is my understanding that the board can make the decision to identify as broad or narrow as a scope as they choose. High school number 13 would be considered the prompt within section 3A that would allow the board to consider it to enter into a redistricting. Logically, if that is the prompt, it would identify that the scope would most likely be centered around the opening of high school 13. But this again is for the board to identify what they choose for the scope to be.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And also it's related to the question asked earlier during another session. It's about the school utilization projection for the next 2 years. So basically there will be uncertainties associated with that projection. And because we are going to use projection to lead our school redistricting about utilization, I think that it will be difficult for us to expanded to countywide because of the uncertainty associated with that projection. So I think it will be more practical to focus on high school 13 area. Yeah, so that's my comment. Thank you.
Ms. Mosley?
I just wanted to speak up and mention that this is an exciting time for our county. We're opening up a new high school. That is really a major thing. I think we should not be scared of this. I think we should lean forward and, appreciate that this has been a lot of work for many advocates in the community. We have a new high school coming on that's gonna, really help balance out some of the issues of overcapacity that we're having in many of our schools. It's gonna open up more opportunities for students to take the classes that they wanna take. It's gonna increase our teaching force so that we can invite more new educators to our community. It's gonna be really cool. I'm looking forward to a brand new marching band too. That's really exciting for me. And I am sure that the community has many other exciting things they're looking forward to. Yes, moving schools is very scary. We're used to what we're doing, but this is a good thing. We're doing this to open a new school. We're doing this to, take a role in our renovated schools. This is a really good thing. And I really want to help change that narrative that, people don't like to move their schools. Of course, they love their school communities, but we're building a new school community, and that is a great opportunity.
Ms. Mallow?
I want to double down on Jolene. Not only is this going to open a new school, it is the Hammond renovation where we're going to affect the potential Hammond geographic range and relieve overcrowding at some of our most crowded schools. This board just a couple weeks ago said, we want target capacity at 100%, target utilization. And the idea that then 2 weeks later, we're backing away from that because we don't want to move kids. This is our opportunity to say, Howard High School, we see that you are perennial overcrowded. And look, there's a new school down the street, and some of you are going to get to go there. And some of you students from Long Reach are going to get to go to this brand new school. And some of the students from Jessup and Hammond and Reservoir are all going to get to go to this new school. It is a wonderful opportunity that we have fought long and hard for. Let's not look at it like it's the end of the world. We can make positive change. And yes, transition is hard. But look at all the hard things that we've already overcome in the last 2 years. I mean, Dr. Martirano started this evening off talking about the resiliency and things that our teachers have overcome, our staff has overcome, and how hard they're working. And let's embrace that. Let's embrace how great things can be when we take positive steps to make change. So thank you, Jolene, for highlighting that.
Mr. Lubley, you have your hand raised, I think. No, you don't. You used to.
I did have it raised. I was going to make a comment based off of board member Ms. Mosley, but I believe Ms. Mallow and Ms. Mosley addressed what I was going to say, so I lowered my hand.
Do we, for the scope, do we have to include, we don't want a Route 1 high school, right? We want to diversify the housing, diversify, the economics and all of that. Does that have to be included in this motion? That sort of thing, that's just more nitty gritty what the board does. We don't have to do that because I'm just thinking about the intersections, the drive, the economics of, and how you draw those boundary lines to make sure.
No, man, that is actually the process in which the board will go through the boundary review is to try and identify what the intended attendance area will be.
Okay. All right. One more time through for everybody. Dr. Wu.
So when will we have the name for the school? When the naming committee?
Dr. Wu, let's focus.
That's coming the next year, too.
Comes later.
I can address that. That is governed by
Let's-
policy, and it's within the year before it opens.
You mean next year? Okay, I'm less excited.
It is exciting. Ms. Watts.
I want to know how does this, what we're going to do right now, because I'm hesitant to overstep our policy. So I just want to make sure what we offer up, how does that align or conflict with the policy? Obviously, it has to be in line with the policy, but just kind of where does the scope butt against that policy?
It is actually within the policy, and I can let you know it is in two sections. Under C, Board of Education deliberations, where it identifies the board will notify the public of its decision for the superintendent to proceed or not to proceed. And then under section 4 responsibilities, B, is where it identifies that the board will again notify the public the actual scope and identify which standards was in 3A prompted it. So exactly what you're doing tonight specifically relates to the requirements within the policy.
That I understand. Thank you for pointing out the sections. I think that's helpful for everybody at home too. I want to make sure that like what we're giving, because Ms. Cotronio just suggested a route one thing. So I think everyone's wondering, or maybe I'm just the only one wondering what exactly, how big does the scope need to be, or how small does it need to be, so that we're not narrowing you down too much too fast. I think that's my my hesitancy of going forward.
I think I understand. To answer your question, what we need as far as the scope is what the board would like this process to look at. Maybe that's a better way to think about it. Not where, but what to look at. Does the board want this process to look at how high school 13 specifically, and obviously there will be related moves, but how high school 13 attendance area is defined? Or does the board want this process to take a look at the entire county? That's the type of scope. How that actually happens will be part of the process, and it'll go through the work sessions where the board will deliberate, listen to public testimony, look at the plans that are presented to see how the actual boundary will be developed, but that comes later. So right now the scope is just, what do you want us to look at for this process?
Okay, so I'll make the motion. I think we're a little all gun shy on this. I move that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in policy 6010 during the calendar year 2022, inclusive of the entire county.
Second.
Do you want to?
Dr. Wu.
I actually want to make a motion, but
Well, we have a motion on the floor, so. Do you have discussion?
I think I can make a comment, right? Or I don't support.
Roger's hand is up.
It's Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Cotronio. I would like to note that we offered a suggested motion in the board report.
Yes.
And the reason for a little bit more focus and a narrow focus of that motion is a kind of a follow-up on the process that we all, or most of us, took part in 2019 that was a countywide review of boundaries. And I think it's our recommendation that this particular process focus on the boundary for high school 13 for one of the reasons that Dr. Liu mentioned with the uncertainty around enrollment projections. That's one of the factors, as well as the fact that narrowing the board's energy and attention on one specific area of the county and the impacts around opening that new school and creating that specific boundary, I think will generate a better product in the end, as opposed to addressing situations all around the county at all levels at the same time. Just our input and recommendation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Ms. Watts, or no, you just spoke. So, Dr. Wu?
I'm waiting the motion, and then I'll make a new motion based on suggestion, focused on high school 13 only.
Ms. Mosley, go ahead.
I was going to ask it, and Ms. Watts, if you would consider, I think that it is a good idea to be flexible with having the interest of the whole county be in the motion, so that if there are areas that need adjusting that are outside of the scope specifically of the new high school area can be addressed without having to revisit the motion. But would it be a good idea to add with onto the motion that the intention be toward the new high school boundary?
That was my intention. If it's not clear, then please feel free to, I can accept that as an amendment without having gone through the formal process. Like I just don't want to narrow our school staff down too tight so that they can only
Can we use
focus on
the motion from the staff they've prepared? I think that's probably
Mr.
very clear.
Mr. Rogers or Mr. Lubley, will that be too tight for you guys to move forward? Because I feel like it's I'm getting a lot of head shakes. So I just want to make sure it's not too narrow. Like if you do need to make some adjustments that would impact other areas, that those adjustments would be made and not restricted.
If I may, if what I'm hearing, if I understand it correctly, your motion is not meant to do a countywide redistricting. Your motion is to do a redistricting related to high school 13 and related moves because of the attendance area for high school 13.
Yes.
If that is correct, then that can very easily be stated that the scope of the redistricting would be focused on the opening of high school 13 and related adjustments. That does allow for moves in any area, not just high school. For instance, one of the factors to consider when we go through the process is feeds. So if a move is being taken a look at and the feed from middle school to high school, and we have to start to look at adjustments because of those feeds, the related adjustments in the motion would allow us to do that. So I believe that type of motion would address what you and Ms. Mosley are looking for.
Is there, I guess to my board members, is there any need for me to adjust that? Because I don't want us to present it as only high school 13 and our community is not understanding that surrounding areas could also move, right? I want to make sure that it's very clear to the community that yes, we are filling a high school, but it will be impactful to surrounding areas as well. So I'm happy to change my motion or withdraw it to make something different, but Ms. Mosley, go ahead.
This is a question for staff. Are there areas in the county that need adjusting that are outside of what might be impacted by high school 13? That's what I'm concerned about, that yes, the intention is that this redistricting is triggered because high school 13 is coming online, yay. But are there areas in the county that need some support with perhaps having redistricting happen so that they could have better capacity utilization for their schools? That's why I think it's best to say countywide. I'm also concerned, I remember reading legislation that said that we would have to do more different public testimony cycle based on when things were added to a proposal, based on, was it added in the superintendent's plan versus did it come up in conversations during work sessions? So I'm trying to avoid that as well.
I understand your concern with regards to the public hearings that has been identified. It is within the law, but it has been represented in the adopted policy 6010. With regards to looking at other areas, I'm sure there are other areas. I don't want to spout any off specifically right now, but I will reiterate a couple items that Mr. Rogers noted, is that the specific impetus for this redistricting is High School 13. And something that Mr. Rogers said during the projection accuracy report is that right now we are seeing difficulties with the enrollment and projections based off of COVID. And one of the other items is with the redistricting in 2019, we saw an effect to the actual projections and enrollments. And as noted, we may not have fully realized those effects yet. So that's an important factor for the board to take into consideration if we were to look at other areas or pockets within the county. So as Mr. Rogers noted, it might be better to specifically focus on High School 13 and related. But again, that's a decision that the Board of Education can discuss and come up with.
Ms. Mallow?
So I think people probably reacted a little bit viscerally to the countywide. And I'm confident that the intent wasn't comprehensive countywide redistricting. So I would think that if I remember the motion correctly, what could be added to the end would be with a focus on High School 13, so that then where things need to be addressed countywide or level-wide, it can still happen within the parameters of giving adequate legal notice, along with the parameters of filling High School 13, filling Hammond, and any other subsequent moves, but not limit us, as Ms. Petronio said. We perhaps need to adjust Thomas Viaduct given its overcrowded state and with no additional seats coming online. So there may need to be adjustments there that aren't directly related to High School 13, but may be directly related. But I think by not using the word comprehensive, then we know that we don't mean to repeat what happened in 2019, 2020, but instead to not narrow it, but just add with a focus on High School 13. And I'm happy to, if Ms. Harrison can read the motion, then I'm happy to make an amendment.
Can we use a suggestion motion from our staff?
And let's get back to like the hand raising. Like, I think we've gotten a little bit out of order here. Everyone has spoken. I think Dr. Liu, I think you're I don't think you've spoken twice. So why don't you go ahead and then we'll.
Point of order. I was waiting for Ms. Harrison to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Read the motion.
Okay, am I reading Ms. Watt's motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Move approval to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in policy 6010 during calendar year 2020, inclusive of the entire county. And then am I adding with a focus on High School 13?
Boundary lines. Oh.
Did you read 2020?
Calendar year
22.
2022.
Okay. I move an amendment to the motion on the floor to add with a focus on High School 13.
Second.
Dr. Liu?
I would like to provide my perspective because I really think that decision-making need to be guided by accurate data. The projection data won't be accurate. When we move to polygons or switch these two polygons, and then we rely on the projection, we saw that we achieved what we want to achieve. However, if the projection is not accurate, we may end up with the opposite result. We know that we have a new High School 13, and it's exciting. So want to move students to new high school so they can enjoy the new high school. However, for other part of the county, if the projection itself is not accurate, how can we know that the redistricting will achieve the result we want to see? So I really think that let's put aside the excitement or any emotion, regardless whether it's positive or negative. Think about the data. Decision making need to be guided by accurate data, not emotions. So I would not support a countywide redistricting process for this reason. I really think that the recommended motion by the staff is very reasonable and accurate, yeah. So I would support the original language proposed by the staff. Thank you.
Mr. Washington is sitting.
Pardon?
Mr. Washington's waiting for the
Okay.
days.
Mr. Washington?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Dr. Liu just reiterated what Mr. Rogers said, and I just wanted to kind of emphasize that. With the current motion, Mr. Rogers, that we recommended, it's High School 13. It's any related moves to High School 13. And because of what you stated earlier with the projection situation and this where we are right now, that is the move we're really encouraging. It's the board's decision, but that's the move we're encouraging because of what you said, because we still have not seen the bounce back from the projections with the COVID situation, which could affect those numbers, which is why, while we don't want to over narrow the scope, that scope is a safer scope at this time, Mr. Rogers. I think that's how I interpreted what you were saying, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Washington, for reiterating that. Yeah, there's Dr. Liu hit on it earlier. There's a lot of uncertainty with student enrollment right now, and I think that's a reason to keep the scope narrow. And I want to encourage the board that, you know, as we're reviewing boundaries, as we complete our enrollment projection, develop our feasibility study, gather feedback from the community, we will be looking at adjustments related to High School 13. That was the intent of the suggested motion in the staff report, to evaluate boundary scenarios for High School 13, as well as related adjustments to generating that boundary. So yes, Scott, Mr. Washington represented that accurately, and I think that's a valid recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pipe in. We've filled schools before. Marriott's Ridge, Thomas, we've done it. And this is how we've used this language that you've suggested. And it's not limited. They were able to do some spot redistricting to help out Duckett's Lane when they did, it's not limiting. And this kind of language has worked in the past to fill a new school opening. So I really would hesitate to put anything countywide, anything like that in a motion. I think we need to be very, what's the word? I don't know. Just very specific. It doesn't limit us because we're saying and related moves. But I'm not in support of anything other than the language that's been suggested by staff. Because it's worked in the past. It's not, we've been able to fill schools and do spot, fix certain areas, certain schools, egregious situations. It has not limited us. And we don't stoke the fear of countywide mass. You say countywide in our motion, it's going to cause a lot of consternation. And I respect staff's take on this, and this is their expert opinion, and they've thought long and hard about this wording, and I trust that. Dr. Wu, we're going to do one more time through. We really need to just take the vote on this because I think we could talk all night.
No,
so really quick.
I will make a motion on the suggested motion, so I'm waiting for this voted.
Ms. Watts, quickly.
I feel like we're talking about 6 in one, half a dozen the other. So either we can say countywide with the focus on High School 13, or we can catch our community completely off guard and say High School 13, and then we make moves for subsequent areas, and people didn't realize that they were a subsequent area. So I think that this is about maybe putting our community on notice for me, and making sure that people understand that while we're filling a high school, we're also making moves that are impactful throughout the county. Ms. Mosley, go ahead.
I was going to actually say just about the same thing, that I think it is very important to be upfront with what's actually happening. We're a county school system. We run as a county. All the feeds feed throughout the county. There's no breaks, right? Every single feed can connect every single school eventually, right? We have snow days as a county. We're going through this as a county, and I don't want to just do what was always done, where people are caught off guard when their school comes up and their polygon comes up. If we are engaging with the community to do this wonderful thing of opening the high school and using the best information that we have available to us, the intention is our county is redistricting with the intention to fill high school 13. There may be other repercussions of areas of past changes or things that we didn't know were happening that need corrected that we should be upfront about when we're talking about that this is a countywide school system. And I feel like it is not good practice to just do what we've always done and catch people off guard, because I know that hurts people when they hear things that they're not expecting. Oh, I don't live anywhere near there, but man, my school is really overcrowded. And then it shows up on the feasibility study or the superintendent's redistricting thing, right? That hurts more than knowing going into it. Oh, we're a county and we're going through redistricting with the intent for high school 13 filling. And, be aware, be in this together with us. This is what we're all doing together. We're all filling up the school. We're all trying to make our capacities the best that they can be, so no one is caught off guard and everyone is working together.
Mr. Lubley, and then we're going to call the vote.
Thank you. From what I'm gathering here, the concern is the use of the word county within the motion. I think everybody is kind of talking about the same thing, meaning the redistricting will focus on high school 13 and will include related adjustments. So the base concern here is the use of the word county. I think one piece of communication obviously is this board meeting and the discussion that we're having here. I would also like just to point out that there will be a robust communication process that goes along with redistricting. So not saying that it won't happen, but it would be our intent to be as clear, transparent, and upfront with all parties that may be affected from the very beginning. So we would hope that even without the word county in the motion, when it focuses on high school 13 and related, that the communication with the county would help assuage those fears and let everybody know that it won't be just at high school 13, that it will spread out beyond that.
Mrs. Harrison, can you read the motion?
Okay, I have three motions. I have the one by Ms. Watts. I have the original staff language motion by Dr. Wu, and then the amendment by Ms. Mallow.
Dr. Wu's motion
haven't
doesn't
made a
stand.
motion
Yeah, Dr. Wu's motion isn't there yet. So we will vote on the amendment to my motion first, and then we will vote on the full motion if that passes, and then we will let the floor be open again.
Okay, so are we voting on the motion by Ms. Mallow or yours?
Yes, by Ms. Mallow.
Yeah, Ms. Mallow.
Okay. Move approval to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in policy 6010 during calendar year 2022, inclusive of the entire county. And then do I add amendment?
With a focus
With a
on
focus on high school 13. So I have a motion by Ms. Mallow and a second by Ms. Watts. Dr. Liu?
No.
Ms. Mallow?
Yes.
Mr. Banez?
I can't vote on redistricting.
Ms. Mosley?
Yes.
Ms. Watts?
yes.
Dr. Wu?
No.
Ms. Catronio?
No.
Motion fails 3-3.
Can I make a motion?
The original motion now, without the amendment attached to it.
Ms. Harrison?
Okay, I'm sorry, I need a second for Dr. Wu's.
So, Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
It's the motion I made,
Oh, okay.
just without the inclusive of high school 13.
Okay, so move approval to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in policy 6010 during calendar year 2022. And that motion was made by,
That was made by me, but it had, I don't have the language in front of me now, but it had inclusive of the entire county at the end of it.
okay. I think that one was,
It's the motion you just read for Mrs. Mallow,
right. so
except the chop off the last bit that says
focus on high school 13.
high school 13, yeah, that little chunk.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to copy it and
No
put
problem.
it in. Okay, so the motion was by Ms. Mallow,
Ms. Watts,
Ms. Watts.
Ms. Watt.
Okay.
and seconded by Ms. Mosley.
Okay, so move approval to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in 6010 during calendar year 2022, inclusive of the entire county. Dr. Liu,
No.
Ms. Mallow,
Yes.
Ms. Mosley,
Yes.
Ms. Watts,
Yes.
Dr. Wu,
No.
Ms. Catronio.
No.
Motion fails 3-3.
So it's my turn?
Yep.
Okay, I just follow the suggested motion from our staff, right? I move to initiate a boundary review process within calendar year 2022, prompted by the scheduled opening of a new high school 13 for school year 2023 and 2024. This process will include a review of potential school boundaries for new high school 13 and other adjustments related to the opening of a new high school 13, considering all factors listed in section 3B of policy 6010. New high school 13 is open in school year 2023-2024 with the 9th and 10th grades.
So just the first part of that was the motion, Dr. Wu, right?
What's that?
Just the first part.
Do I
And
need
it
to-
should be like, I'm not there in the,
It's a long motion,
but
right?
it's written down,
Yeah, it's a long motion.
Point of order, this is what he read.
right?
So
That's why I'm asking
either
him to
modifies
clarify.
the-
Please clarify, Dr. Wu.
Yeah, I have a question. Are you reading the recommended motion by the staff or you're drafting your own? Because,
No, suggest motion, right?
But they have the recommendation, the language clearly in the document.
Oh,
Very clear.
That's one? Okay, I read the PDF file one. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
it is the PDF file.
Yeah, no, I'm reading the their memo. Oh, you want the one on that? Okay, so can I change my motion? I think that one pretty clear.
Draw it, yes.
Okay. I'm reading the memo, so that's okay.
Okay.
Provide, I move to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process, outline policy 6010 during calendar year 2022. This review should include boundary modification to establish an attendance area for new high school 13, including related adjustments.
Second is Dr. Lu.
Okay, so I have a motion by Dr. Wu and a second by Dr. Liu to move approval to direct the superintendent to initiate the boundary review process outlined in policy 6010 during calendar year 2022. This review should include boundary modifications to establish an attendance area for new high school number 13, including related adjustments. Dr. Liu,
Yes.
Ms. Mallow,
Yes.
Ms. Mosley,
Yes.
Ms. Watts,
Yes.
Dr. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Catronio.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Lubley, Mr. Rogers. Here we go.